How about that? It helps if the mic is working, doesn't it? I've had a couple of problems with my MV7, not quite working properly. And the irony of that start is not lost on me because today what I thought I'd talk about was checklists. Making sure that everything is working before you get on camera. I'll be honest with you, I've had a little bit of a rush to get going today. Hey Sammy, I'm glad it's you that's watching. Yeah, the mic's working now. It's all good. Hey Paul, great to see you too as well. Yeah, I've literally just finished adding my checklist as a digital download to my my website because it was something I was going to talk about today, and then I realised that I still hadn't actually uploaded it to there. It's available as part of my Ecamm Live Masterclass, but not as a digital download. So I will just drop the link in though now while I remember about it, hopefully. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. It's my my going live checklist, so that you can. You can check off all these things before you go live and know that you'll never have any problems. And there's me starting initially without my mic live, but there you go, never mind. Let's move swiftly on. So I will come to this in a moment. I'll just give you a quick update on my sort of progress with my CEDA videos. I've basically gone off schedule. I've gone off script. I mean, I never have script in any case, so I suppose it's quite fitting in that respect. But I have gone slightly off my my schedule. So I've been just making videos in no particular order, it seems. And so the videos I've actually put out the last couple of days have been some of these ones that were intended to be down here. But never mind. They will all get made. Made a few more shorts yesterday as well. So those will be going out on YouTube and TikTok. I've still not quite got into the process of with the shorts, getting them out onto YouTube, TikTok, and all of the different platforms as well, such as IG, Facebook, and so on. So I need to just get into a bit more of a flow of that. But like as I've said before, the point of me doing this thing with CEDA is just to sort of get myself into this concept and flow of creating things in bulk and then having them go out. The issue that I've got at the moment is I'm creating them in bulk, but then it's like every day one after another. Whereas what I'll ultimately end up doing is like have one day a week where I just create all of the content for the week, or maybe sort of do a whole week and get a whole month's worth of content or something like that. So that's the ultimate goal of all of this. But if I just go through this checklist, so this is what I thought I'd cover off today. I should just come back to that issue that I had yesterday, where I had got a community violation strike or whatever it is with YouTube. Actually, it was a warning. It wasn't a strike, but nevertheless. And it was because of that video I'd posted about Downy, the app to download videos from YouTube. And, I was thinking, that's a bit weird. It's just a publicly available app that's available as part of Setup. So I can't see that there's anything wrong with it. Otherwise, there would have been an issue with the app itself, potentially. Well, apparently not. Apparently it is definitely 100% against the YouTube terms of service to download videos from YouTube. So you're technically not allowed to do that. When I say technically, I mean you're absolutely not allowed to do it as per the terms of service for YouTube. And so me making a video telling people how to basically do something against their terms of service is wrong. And so I hold my hands up and apologize to the fine folks at YouTube for even daring to suggest such a thing. I shall never, ever, I promise, download another video from YouTube. So with that out of the way and with my my confession done, and hopefully I can start to work on forgiveness and repent for my my terrible sins, I shall just crack on. And by the way, there was a load of other videos that had the same sort of thing, but that doesn't mean that it's allowed. Obviously, it's just a case of they haven't been caught up with yet. So I'm sure all those other people who have made videos about Downy, telling people how to download videos from YouTube and things like that, it will catch up with them in due course as well. So let's move swiftly on, and let's hope that I don't fall foul of any more any more things here as well. Hello, great to see you here. Pepper Tree Villa. I can't just remember your name. I think I've known your name in the past, but it is totally slipping my mind. But it's great to see you here anyway. So yeah, with that, let's have a little look at the checklist. So I'll go through, this is the process that I'm supposed to go through before every live stream. But yeah, the last 30 minutes I've been creating in fact, let me show you what I've created, shall I? Arnie, great to see you. Great to see you, Arnie. And hello, Mr. Rob. I always enjoy your Ecamm theme. Every time I hear it come on, it gets me in the Ecamm mood. So great to see you here too. So I have created this this checklist that you can get from my website, and in fact, if I just pull up my website quickly, I'll show you where where you can get it. It is at takeonetech.io/checklist. So this is what we're going to be going through if you want to play along. So just go over to the website, and you can just enter your name and email, and then download the checklist. This is what I've been doing, actually, creating this landing page, because I had it on my old website, but since I've moved over to Kajabi, I realized I didn't have the landing page done. So 30 minutes between then and the start of the live stream, that's what I was doing. So I thought I'd just go through this, though. This is something that you get, by the way, as part of my Ecamm Live Masterclass. So that's mentioned down there, ecammlivemasterclass.com. It's one of the downloads in there, but I just wanted to sort of share it for the benefit of anybody else. So I'll just go through these I've split them into different sections. So basically, related to different sort of aspects of your streaming setup. I deliberately left lots of white space in this. The idea being that somebody might want to download it, perhaps print it out, and then the space to write on other things that they might want to add in, because this is not necessarily a one size fits all by any stretch. It's just some sort of high level things that I tend to try and go through, except today, before my live stream. So the first section is the audio section. And this is perhaps seems like an obvious one, but make sure your audio interface is switched on. Now, this crops up for, if you're using an external interface, but also if you're using something like Audio Hijack, which is what I use on the Mac to do some noise cancellation and things like that. Now, if I've got my in-ear monitors plugged into my Shure MV7, I can hear myself, so it sounds like, everything's working. But it may not be actually going through into Ecamm. So checking that is, and you may not be using Ecamm, but whatever the case is, just checking that your audio interface is actually switched on. By the way, some of these might seem like totally obvious, but the point is it's often the obvious things that we miss, and I'm speaking from experience, not least today. Next one is the source selection. So making sure that you are actually getting the right microphone going into your recording equipment and things like that. So for example, in Ecamm, the obvious one there would be just making sure that you have got the right microphone selected going into Ecamm as well. So that once again, you're not feeling like you're hearing something, but that it's not actually being picked up by Ecamm. Easy way to do that in Ecamm is obviously just look at the little levels and notice if they are sort of bouncing up and down when you're speaking and things like that. Next is signal processing. So again, that is something that you may or may not use, but I do use Audio Hijack for noise cancellation, depending on whether I've got fans or aircon on or things like that. So it's just checking that that is all set to the right settings, basically. So sometimes I might not have it on, and other times it might be on. So just making sure that that is all as it should be. Checking levels. So that is a case of if you've got sort of a hardware interface or a software interface and you've got multiple different things coming in, just making sure that those are all correct. And this would be in Ecamm a case of going through different scenes and making sure that you've got levels set, because you can change those independently on different scenes. With like mute, for example, you might be muted in a particular scene. So just making sure that all of those are correct. And of course, remember the hardware mute. So the MV7, for example, has a hardware mute on the mic. I know that, things like the Rodecaster have a hardware mute as well. So just making sure that that is not on. You might think that everything's all set up. This becomes, this is a live stream checklist, but it's just equally applicable to recording, but also equally applicable to if you're using your setup to go into things like Zoom. And people often get caught out with Zoom when they've got the Zoom mute, they've got the Ecamm mute, and they've got their hardware mute. So just making sure that all of that is set up. So that is, as I say, it is intended to just be a sort of high-level starting point of a checklist, so that if you've got anything specific to your setup, then you may want to add those in. Next one is lights, and some of these again sound obvious. Make sure the lights are on. Now I've got two big lights here in front of me, and it's obvious to me if they're on or not. However, I do have also little small lights in the background and things like that, and so those are the ones that it's easy to miss. Actually, if you're just sort of coming down to start, you might not immediately notice that they're on, especially if you're using multiple different camera angles and you're switching between different angles. Then it may look fine for the particular view that you're looking at, but then when you switch over to a different camera angle, maybe you realize, oh, I forgot to switch that light over at the side on. So making sure that these sort of practical lights are all on as well. Lighting positions as well. So I'm quite fortunate in that I do have a fixed studio space so that everything is always, exactly where I left it, and I really don't touch anything or move anything around as such. So they are generally in the right positions. But if you're in a studio space where you kind of like set it up for the particular video that you're making or the live stream or something like that, if you use the room for other things, then just checking the positions are correct. The color and temperature of the lights, so that is something that you can change on certain lights, and it would depend on what you were doing with it. Now, the reason why this came up for me specifically is because, again, this is a checklist that I use for the live stream, for my recording, but also for Zoom and things like that as well. Now, I have used extensively green screen in the past. Now, at the moment, I'm not doing, but previously on my YouTube channel for the first sort of 8 months, I think all of the videos were green screen, or 6.5 months at least, were green screen. And then also I use green screen. I've got one that can drop down behind me here. So I use that sometimes on different Zoom calls or for different business things that I'm doing, depending on what it is. And so one of the key things about green screen, and to make it look realistic, is to make sure that the sort of color and temperature of the camera is matching the background. So if you've got a sort of real daylight look to the scene that you've got behind you, but then you've got sort of warm orangey coloured lights shining on you, then you're going to look out of sync with the background, or out of not in keeping with the background, shall we say. So I used to adjust the color and temperature and things like that of the lights. Another thing that I used to do is on the green screen for my channel that I used to use before, it had got some sort of blue and purpley light in the background, and so I had some practical lights on either side of me in the room that simulated the blue and purple from either side. So the sort of the overall glow, if you like, or tinge that I was getting over on the sides of me was matching the background as well. So just making sure that the color and temperature of the light is correct. And again, another one is the brightness. So just making sure that that's all correct. Again, some of these might seem obvious, but the point is going through having a checklist. I often think about, there's a great book called The Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande, and it was all about what happened when they instituted a, is that the right word? Where they put in place a process of checklists with the same sort of rigor that they do in the airline industry. They put that into place in hospitals, and it actually cut down the number of fatalities from accidents during surgery by like a massive amount. And it was all because there's a certain hierarchical structure in hospitals with surgeons, maybe sometimes the people who are maybe not as experienced or qualified, perhaps, let's say that, not feeling that they could speak up to actually sort of call out the surgeon when they saw that they were doing something wrong. And so with in the airline industry and aviation, then there are checklists for everything. The startup procedure, the takeoff procedure, all of that, it's all controlled by checklists, and it's just a case of systematically going through it. So the point is, you do include everything on here, and so that's why there is some stuff that looks pretty basic. Next on down the list is the camera and your camera setups. So the first one is make sure I missed one off there with the lights, make sure that batteries are charged. So I do use, for my little top-down shot, I've got this little Ulanzi VL 439, which was or 49 I should say, which was actually the ones that I used to use in the background before I changed over to these Nanlite Pavo tubes that I've got behind me that I just sort of illuminate in the back wall. Those ones are plugged in and hardwired. I mean, they are battery operated, but you can just run them from the cable as well. I used to do that with these little Ulanzi lights as well, but now that it's on this little top-down shot, so I have that when I'm using my top-down shot, I am reliant on battery. So just making sure that the battery is charged or has been charged before you start. Next is let's come on to the cameras. So once again, making sure that they're on and connected. It's pretty obvious, isn't it, whether your camera's on, you would think. So, for example, my main front-facing camera, it's very clear if I start doing anything and it's not on, then obviously I know about that. However, the top-down camera that I use, or some of the other cameras that I've got around the place, then if those weren't on, then I wouldn't necessarily know immediately. So it's just a case of going through and just checking that they are all on. And in fact, my top-down camera is literally just an old iPhone, but I'm using camo. So make sure that that's all set up and positioned correctly. So there again on 2.2 is position and framing. And with the top-down one especially, that's something that I have it on this little little arm that can raise up and down, so I can sort of move it about and position it over the desk. So if I'm going to be showing something on the desk, just making sure in advance that the position and framing is all done correctly. Next one down is making sure that batteries are charged. So if you are using a camera where you are reliant on batteries, then obviously just making sure that you've got enough juice to see you through the whole thing that you're going to be doing. I tend to use have everything plugged in, so I don't tend to work off batteries, but it is just one to be aware of. Any virtual cameras that you've got. So sometimes I use, I have two Macs, and then I'll use Ecamm in one to feed into the other one. So anything where you've got things like that, where you've got some form of virtual camera, then just making sure that those are all set up and correct. And that would go for the camo, for example, that I'm using for the top-down shot, making sure that that is on and working and set up. There are various different adjustments you can make in camo. So for example, with the top-down shot, I actually have the adjustments on picture quality and things like that. I know that you can do that in Ecamm as well, but I actually do that on the camo side because I feel it's just getting the feed straight from the camera, and it may well be, I don't actually know this, but it may well be that it's actually controlling it within the camera as opposed to just doing it after the fact. But in any case, just making sure that that's all set up. And next would be network cameras. So that is anything that you've got running over NDI or things like that where you need them set up. So sometimes I do have use NDI HX capture on my phone, and then I have to enable me to sort of show something using the phone. So just making sure that that is on and connected. But obviously there are far more advanced network style cameras as well. So in that case, just checking that those are on. Next is screen, and this is intended to be, I suppose, quite specific to people who are doing stuff where they are sharing the screen or doing demos or things like that. And so making sure the desktop is cleared if indeed you are going to be showing your desktop. With Ecamm Live, there is a setting in there to sort of hide all the desktop icons. It doesn't hide them for you as the person operating it, but they just don't include them in the output. So that is always an option there. I tend to keep a pretty clear desktop anyway, although I do actually use it for, throwing stuff on in the day. I treat it like a desktop, basically. Put stuff on it in the day, and then at the end of the day, I clear it up, or rather have Hazel clear it all up, a great little app for organizing folders and things like that. The next one is screen resolution. Now, this is something that I've got a little button on my Stream Deck for. In fact, I've got the show and hide icons, desktop icons on my Stream Deck as well. But I've got a button on my Stream Deck to change the screen resolution, because when I am doing a screen demo, my screen is a 4K display, and so if you show the whole screen, it gets a little bit too small to see, especially if people are watching on mobile. And I know you can zoom in on the screen, but even then, it's a little bit impractical, really. So if I'm doing something where I'm demonstrating something on the screen and I'm demonstrating the whole screen, then I will tend to change the resolution from 4K to 1920 by 1080, and then still even use the zoom in feature. But it just means that it's sort of readjusted the screen resolution. So that's a good thing to do if you are going to be demoing stuff on the screen. Next up is making sure that your content is queued up if you are doing screen demos. So of course, you don't want to be sort of fumbling around in the middle of the live stream or in the middle of your recording saying, oh, let me just open up this web page or things like that. So I don't tend to do a massive amount of planning for my videos. I've started to do more of it for my my live streams. I do obviously think about a little bit more about what I'm going to be talking about. And by the live streams, I mean my kind of regular weekly ones. I've tried to be a bit more structured about that, and so we'll have things more planned out. But certainly thinking about anything that you're going to be talking about, so making sure that that content is all queued up, so that you don't find yourself wanting to show something and then having people hanging on while you're looking for it. Next one is window sizes and positions. So I did a video actually yesterday that came out yesterday, which was all about screen sharing best practices in Ecamm Live. And one of them was about, getting your windows all correctly sized and things like that. And so if you are going to be doing demos, what you don't want to do is then quick flick over to some particular screen and then it looks something like this. You've got like one window here, one window there, and things aren't in the correct positions. So just making sure that everything is all correctly placed on the screen. There's a great tool to use to do that. I've done a video on that one as well called Moom, which is a window manager, but it allows you to set sort of preset positions and things like that, where you can just, with the press of a button or keyboard shortcut or whatever it is, you can just have a window appear in a specific space. So that's what the way that I do it, to make sure that basically all of my content is queued up, and crucially it's in the right place as well. If you are going to be doing any screen sharing of things like iPads or iPhones as part of the demos, then obviously making sure that your external devices are all connected as well. So let's move on to the system. But before I do, this is actually this whole sheet I created as part of the Ecamm Live Masterclass. And that's basically your online resource for all things Ecamm Live. And the thing about it is it's a one-time sign up, but you get lifetime access. And the reason why I've done this is because on my channel I often cover Ecamm Live. I've done over 80 videos on things related to Ecamm, but the problem I've got is that the information gets out of date, but it's not out of date enough to take down the whole video. But it's just some things in there with the rapid pace of development of Ecamm have changed. And so with the Ecamm Live Masterclass, basically it's going to be always up to date with the latest information. So it becomes kind of like your online Ecamm encyclopedia, where you can always go and find whatever the latest techniques or way to do things are. It covers everything from beginner all the way through to advanced, but then I also cover things like, how to set up your Stream Deck, how to work with Stream Deck and Loop Deck with Ecamm Live, and then how to use those devices like on their own as well. So creating icons, how to do that. Also looking at how to use Ecamm for presentations, so working with things like PowerPoint and Keynote and so on, and then how to take them into platforms like Zoom, what the best audio settings, video settings, all that sort of stuff in Zoom. Same again for Teams and for Discord as well. So it really is like a complete resource for everything Ecamm Live, and you can sign up today at ecammlivemasterclass.com. So as part of the Ecamm Live Masterclass, there are a load of downloads that you get for that. With that, there's also a load of special bonuses that I'm including with that as well. So definitely go and check out the website and find out about all of those bonuses too. But this is just one of the downloads. There's other downloads in there as well. But I just wanted to share this all with you today. So here we are on the system section. So this is all stuff related to your Mac, really, that I tend to go through before I go live. So one of them is closing down unnecessary apps. So obviously Ecamm is something that uses your processor, and obviously you want to make sure that you're giving it as much potential to run as smoothly as possible. So close down any apps that you happen to have open that are not necessary to the live stream. Next is close down menu bar apps. Now this is one where you might think, well, I've closed everything, there's nothing open in my dock. And yet, if there's something still open in the menu bar, sometimes those can be the ones that are the biggest processor hogs. So definitely check any in the menu bar that aren't necessary as well. Next is close down bandwidth hogs. So as well as things that are going to use the processor, there's also all of these little apps that are running in the background that suddenly decide that they want to talk to the internet. I'm talking things like iCloud Sync, Dropbox, Adobe Creative Cloud, and wouldn't you know it, they always seem to fire up just when you are live streaming, and suddenly they're putting demands on your bandwidth and internet connection. So making sure that you close those, or another thing, rather than actually close them down, is just block them from using the network. And so you can do that with, there's a great app called Trip Mode, which I've done a video all about. But that just sits up in the menu bar, and then you can just toggle that on and off. And basically what it allows you to do is give permission to certain apps to talk over the internet. And then you get other ones that are blocked so that they can't use up your bandwidth. So I have it that when I go live, it's only Ecamm, Safari and Chrome. I let those talk because often I'm demonstrating stuff in those browsers, but certainly anything that's like going to start syncing documents and folders and files and all that sort of stuff, have those switched off. So close any bandwidth hogs. Next one is open up all required apps. So assuming that we've closed down all the main apps, the menu bar apps and things like that, that we don't need, you do also want to make sure that you've got all of the apps that you will be using open. And that would include, things that you're going to be maybe demonstrating over here in the the content that you're perhaps going to show on screen, but also anything that you just might need to have up, even if it's not going to be demonstrated, but something you are going to use during the live stream, making sure that it is open. The reason being that sometimes when you open an app, there can be a sudden usage of processor power as it all sort of gets started up. So just making sure that it is already up and running in advance is definitely useful. Also, some of these apps do call to the internet when you start them up as well. So making sure that anything like that is all done and out of the way is a good thing too. Next is preload scenes with video. Now, this is something that it depends on the system you've got really, but if you've got any scenes in Ecamm Live where you've got video, and that could be a whole scene with a video, or it could be an animated overlay or something like that with video, sometimes there can be a little bit of a delay almost in it starting the video. If it hasn't run, it's almost as if it isn't cached or something like that. I don't know the full technicalities of this, but that is just my view of it and my experience of it. And so what I do is make sure if there are any scenes in my Ecamm Live setup, and this is kind of running over into the whole Ecamm part of things really, but if there are any particular scenes that have video in, or there's something that's really sort of heavy with the animation, just going through and checking that and having it run in advance can stop it from like pausing on the way. I'll show you a good example of this now. If I was to hit my don't forget to like and subscribe, I've just actually hit it. Now this is actually a widget. Let's see if, there we go. There's a bit of a delay there though. And in fact it sort of started coming in, but then it didn't play the full thing. Whereas if I press it again now, it plays instantly. And that's because it hadn't been sort of preloaded. A little bit of a way to say, if you haven't already, then hit the like button. But that is just something. And if you go to video playback as well, that can also be the case. So it's as if, like I say, it's just as if it hasn't cached or something. That brings us on to the whole Ecamm Live section. Obviously, you may not be using Ecamm Live, but this would be the same if you were using some other live streaming platform, presumably as well, though. Just go through the scenes that you've got and that you're going to be using for that particular live stream. Again, this applies equally to recordings as well. Just making sure that you have got all the scenes, they're all in the right place, especially if you're doing things like screen sharing. So just going through and checking that the screen share is all properly framed in the window and things like that. So that's definitely something to do. Then check overlays. Again, this is the same sort of thing really. If you're going through the scenes, then you'll be looking at the different overlays that you've got in Ecamm Live, making sure that they're all right. So I've got this little sort of bug down here that is says Ecamm Live Masterclass, my little TubeBuddy thing. Sometimes I switch that one out in different scenes for different things. So if I'm doing a video on setup, then I'll replace that with my little setup one. And so having those, the right one in the right place basically is something that you would want to do as well. Audio levels. So we talked about this before in the audio section, but specifically in Ecamm Live, this is important because you can have audio levels different for different audio files. For example, if you look in the sound effects window with all your different audio, you can change the audio, the volume of each of those individually. So making sure that you have got them all, right. If you've got a playlist, for example, that you're going to be cycling through with an automatic group in your audio, then in Ecamm, then making sure that they are all at the correct level rather than one being much louder than the others. And then also this thing about being able to mute. So if you go through different scenes, and this is especially important if you are going to be doing interviews as well, just making sure that the interviewee isn't sort of muted where they shouldn't be. And similarly, if you should be muted, like on an intro screen or something like that, where you don't want to be heard, just definitely make sure that you are, muted in all the right places, shall we say. So that is the audio levels. Next is Stream Deck and Loop Deck. Now, these devices are amazing for, just giving a whole new flow to your Ecamm Live productions, be them live streams, recordings, or again into Zoom, which is actually one of the main places that I use Ecamm Live, is for doing presentations and things like that. So Stream Deck and Loop Deck are amazing. They just give everything at the touch of a button until they don't. Until the point where you think you're going to press on something and it's going to do something, and then it doesn't do it. That is the point where they are it can be a little bit frustrating. And although they tend to work, 98% of the time, I don't know. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's an issue with the connection. Sometimes you have something on the network that conflicts with them or something like that. I have had instances where they have just not worked for me. So they are not by any stretch 100% reliable. So what that means is, first of all, don't fully rely on them. Always have a checklist. Always have a an understanding of the shortcuts. But as part of the checklist, go through and just check the Stream Deck is working. Check your loop deck is working. So that means, you know, going through every scene. Generally, with the Stream Deck and loop deck, if one thing is working with Ecamm, then all of the other things will as well. It either works or it doesn't, in my experience. However, you may have buttons that are misprogrammed or something like that. Maybe you think you're activating one overlay, but it's going to show up a different one. So just go through anything that you're going to be using and making sure that they are all working as expected. Next is the streaming destination and event. So in Ecamm, at the bottom of the Ecamm main window, you can select whether you want to record or whether you want to live stream, and where you are going to be streaming to or recording to or whatever. Or, well, you're always recording to the same place, aren't you? Your computer. But you can select where you're going to stream to. So be it YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, or whatever. So that is the first thing. Making sure that you are going to the right place, because obviously if you think you're just about to go live and then you hit the button and you start recording and nobody's seen you, then that's not ideal, is it? Similarly, after you've done a live stream, because I mean, apart from in April where I'm just doing a live stream a day, but generally I do one a week. Now, after my weekly live stream, I still sometimes record videos on the same day or the next day, so I have to remember to change it back to record so that I don't inadvertently hit the button and start streaming live. So just checking the streaming destination that you're going to. But also crucially, this one, the event. You might be set to stream to YouTube, and this is one that's come from personal experience, by the way. There was once where I'd scheduled my weekly live stream a few months ago, and I changed the destination to be YouTube so that I was going to the right place, and then I hit the go live button. In fact, it was Restream, I think I was doing at the time. I hit the go live button, and then it came up, but the title and everything was different, and it was because I hadn't actually selected from the second drop down, the one at the very bottom, the specific event that I wanted to live stream to. And so what it did is it just went out to the default event name that I'd got in Restream. And so then people who were waiting for one event weren't on the one that I was streaming to. So that is, again, as are all of these, generally from some form of personal experience. So making sure that your streaming destination and event is correct. The last section down here is again, some pretty obvious ones really, but just some things to have on the checklist just to sort of prompt you to have a quick look around at these things. First of all, tell family, friends, colleagues, wherever you're streaming from, that you are going to be doing it, so you don't get little knocks on the door or things like that. So I've got 3 kids who love to come and visit me in my office and studio and whatever. So I have to just make sure that they know that Daddy's busy at the moment. But then also things like closing doors and windows. Depending on your setup, it might be easy to just forget that the door's open, and then suddenly, I mean, I used to stream from my basement, which was linked to my kitchen, which was like the hub of the house where all the noise happens. So if I didn't close the door into the kitchen, then sometimes I would get caught out that way, and the noise would come through. Same for windows as well. Turning off desktop notifications so that those don't, first of all, don't have an audible sound, but second, don't just pop up on the screen if you are screen sharing as well. And then finally, putting your phone into do not disturb mode. So that is the checklist. As I say, you can get it from my website. It's a pretty high-level checklist, as you can see, but actually it's those high-level things that catch you out. Certainly all the things that I've had little blunders with in the past have all been these kind of things, going to show my top-down shot, realizing my camera wasn't on, noise coming in from one place or another. So it is always good to just have a glance through all this as you're going through it. So that is what I'm going to be covering for today. Just a little short one, as these daily streams are. I've got a load more videos to make today towards my 200 videos in April. So I am still making progress, probably not quite as much as I'd intended. I would have liked to have been a little bit further ahead in terms of having more of a sort of built up a stock of videos to go out, but never mind, it's still early days yet, so I'm going to try and get all of the videos certainly done by the end of April, which will be going out in May as well. But yeah, hopefully I should be a little bit further ahead. Maybe by my live stream at the weekend I will be, but we'll see. That's all for me today though, but don't go anywhere, because there are some other great videos for those watching on the replay coming up next. So check those out. Have a great day everyone. Bye bye.